For a session presented by American Airlines, please welcome Chief Digital and Information Officer of American Airlines, Ganesh Jayaram, in discussion with SkiftX Senior Branded Content Editor, Darren Frei.
Ganesh, hello.
Hello.
How are you?
Hello again.
So Ganesh, I have to admit, I don't normally fly American Airlines, but I did fly American Airlines on the way to Dallas.
Thank you.
No problems. Thank you. I assume it was your tech-first mindset that helped me get there seamlessly.
Yeah, I would like to take all the credit, although David Seymour, our Chief Operating Officer, might disagree with that. Yeah, let's go on that theme.
The tech-first mindset.
Yes.
You've mentioned this in many interviews before. What is that all about? What do you mean by tech-first?
So tech-first means just reimagining the art of the possible using technology. It's something that Robert has been really passionate about, so that as we look at processes across the board, in all of our operations, we take a look at how technology can improve what we do on a day-to-day basis. And there are several examples of where it manifests itself. First and foremost on the operations side, which is what you were talking about. An example of that is what historically used to be done manually, we're using a digital tool. Take the example of mobility devices, whether it's a wheelchair or a scooter. It's really important for the lifestyle of the person. And so making sure that rather than using manual paper tags that we used to do in the past, like most of the other airlines do, we just launched a digital tool. Mm-hmm. And the digital tool allows us to track the itinerary, especially if there are connections to be made. It lists out the itinerary of the passenger, it lists out the weight of the device. So it has a lot of the information that used to be historically put on a manual paper tag, now captured in the digital tool. Allows better traceability, allows us to inform our frontline team members, allows us to track these devices and make sure it accompanies the passenger on his journey. Mm-hmm. And the really cool part about that is, if you look year over year, this is one of the metrics that we track very religiously, like I'm suspecting every airline does. Our misbagged rate or mishandled baggage rate dropped by about 13% if you just look at the first half of 2024 versus the first half of 2023 when it was being done manually. Mm. So a really big improvement on that, and it's a big driver of customer satisfaction as well. Mm-hmm. So we tried to take a look at all processes that are being done, look at what can be digitalized, what information can we glean from it so as to improve our processes on an ongoing basis.
Mm-hmm. And running an airline, I mean, countless decisions need to be made at every step of the process, and I know that AI and machine learning are helping make those decisions.
Yeah.
How exactly can you share?
Well, American has had a rich history of using AI long before that term was probably invented. Just think about massive amounts of data that needs to be processed to make network planning decisions, to think about the profitability of the routes that we fly and how do we change that on an ongoing basis. But probably like two recent examples that we can talk about from an operations standpoint that can bring this example to light. We've talked a lot about HEAT, which is our hub efficiency analytic tool.
Okay.
And we use that when you don't have a blue sky day like what you had today. You came in yesterday, the weather was perfect. Yeah. We took off, probably landed on time, all that is great. But if you tried to fly in last Tuesday, that wasn't the case, right? We had a severe weather disruption here in Dallas that led to 2 ground stops, 2 ground delay programs, as a result of which, when we know that such a weather is coming, our IOC, our Integrated Operations Center, team members really start to think about the cancel packages that we need to put in and how do we quickly bring the airline back up and running. So we use that analytical engine to do that. We launched the tool back in 2022, and since then we've reduced the number of cancels by about 1,000, which means that customers, crews and the like are better situated than they were ever before.
And you said it was HEAT. Can you say that acronym again, what it stands for?
It's Hub Efficiency Analytic Tool.
Okay.
And it's really important when you think about a place like Dallas. About 65% of the passengers here are connecting for us. And so ensuring that we think about these cancel packages carefully and support our customers in the journey. That's one. The other one is what we call out as smart gating. Right. Smart gating is another tool that uses machine learning to look at how aircrafts are coming in, which runways are they likely going to land in, and where is it going to go next. Also takes into account where our crew is positioned and make sure that we can optimize the taxi time by efficiently allocating gates to the arriving aircraft. And so we've been able to reduce ramp congestion, but also more importantly, reduce taxi time. And we're able to do that roughly across the system. So this is across a network that we fly, roughly about 17 hours per day.
Per day across the system.
Across the system, and
Okay,
that
wow.
drives significant cost savings. Most importantly, from a customer experience standpoint, you land on time. The worst thing that you want to know is once you land, your gate is being held up by another aircraft, and you just wait. And if you're going to make a connection like you're going to do in Dallas, the odds of missing a connection go up. So we take a lot of all those inputs and make sure that we are efficiently connecting you, not just you as a customer, but the crew members as well.
Yeah.
And over and beyond that, if you can save those taxi times, you burn less fuel. And so that's environmentally sustainable as well. So it's a win-win-win across the board.
Let's talk a little bit about when things don't go right, when there are disruptions that are outside of your control.
Yeah.
Things like CrowdStrike, things like Hurricane Milton,
Yeah.
which affected me in Florida. What kinds of, how are you sort of keeping things resilient, back to the theme of today's session?
That's number one focus. And you heard from Robert earlier today, we're already starting to think about winter readiness. Winter is right, Thanksgiving is right upon us, the Super Bowl of the airline industry. We want to make sure that we are planning well in advance. As a technology function, we support David and his team from an operations standpoint to ensure that we are taking into account all the changes that might be being deployed, not just by the IT organization, but also our suppliers. And making sure that we're all planning well in advance in terms of those changes. That's first and foremost. Look, from a technology standpoint, things are going to break. And we have to do as good a job as possible to recover from any outage. So whether it's CrowdStrike or if it's an operational outage, how do we drive process tools and mindset to ensure that the downtime is minimized? So we spend a lot of time training our team members, our suppliers as well, to be able to minimize that downtime. And we've been seeing significant improvements. Just over the last year, we've reduced the amount of downtime by about 38%, just year over year.
Okay.
That's on 30% fewer incidents that are being driven by us in the technology function. So we want to make sure that as a technology function, we're really supporting operations. If I can digress a little bit,
Sure.
What happens when you have a customer disruption? If you are, as you said, you were affected by Hurricane Milton, but were you
Yes.
flying that day, or were you?
I was flying the next day, and
flying the next
my
day.
flight actually left on time, but it was very dicey for a minute.
Yeah, but imagine if you were flying that day and you're affected by a weather event.
Yeah.
I had that happen to me last Friday. Tuesday wasn't as bad as Friday. Friday we had a lot more cancels as well. And so you get an alert on your app that says your flight has been canceled. And then you get a bunch of rebooking options. So
Yes.
we've been working as a technology function to ensure that we give you options that make sense to you, that get you to your destination as fast as possible.
So you're putting control in the hands of your customers.
Your customers,
helping
right?
them
So we
develop
give you a
their own
bunch of
itinerary.
options that
Yeah.
are palatable to you and hopefully get you to your destination a whole lot faster. We made improvements on the tool that we've been running this year, actually it's last year, and we've seen about a 33% reduction in terms of the delays that you might encounter due to a weather event. So not just making sure that the airline is recovering faster, but customers who are disrupted by the event end up in their destinations faster than they might have in the past.
And what do you do to make the response time faster? I mean, how are you improving response times?
So it is the packages that are run. So we had a legacy tool that used to process these in batches. So you would have a bunch of flights that used to get processed, and I said the integrated operations center, which is where a lot of our frontline team members are situated. You got personnel who are trained at looking at flights and making evaluations in terms of, is this going to arrive on time? Is it going to get delayed? What happens to the passengers who are on that flight? How do I get them rebooked,
Yeah.
right? A lot of that used to be done in batches. That was a legacy tool.
Okay.
We now improved it to a point where it can be done dynamically. We also now take into account, how far is the destination, what's the likely set of variables that we can then maximize to ensure that you can be placed on a different package than you might have had in the past. But the main thing is moving from batch time processing, which used to be run like every 45 minutes to an hour, to now doing it more dynamically.
Okay.
Which means some of the solutions, especially if you've got a weather event and there's a set of domino effects that take place, we want to make sure that we can re-accommodate you as soon as possible.
So you're giving consumers these other choices, but you also need to enable your team, and equip them with the right tools to sort of make decisions quickly and to. So what kinds of things are you doing from an internal?
Look, from an IT standpoint, we want to make sure that our developer productivity is a lot better than it's been, and I'm sure everyone looks at it the same way, whether it's operations, whether it's IT. You want to be faster. From an IT standpoint, we focus on resiliency first and foremost to ensure that whatever systems we're putting out there, whatever products we're putting out there, is going to have great uptime. It's going to be very secure. But the other piece is to make sure that we can bring these solutions faster to the marketplace. So how do we take the daily grind out of, or the daily toil from an IT developer standpoint? So we've invested in tools that have improved our productivity as well. From a team member standpoint, AI tools really help that. So we've seen significant improvement in developer productivity, again, in the order of about 30% or so for our developers. And then the last piece I would talk about is, while we focus on tools, the other piece that that we've done a lot of investing in is how do we work collaboratively on technology solutions. So a different way of working between the technology function as well as our operations team or our commercial team members to ensure that we can bring the solutions faster to the marketplace.
Yeah, and you mentioned saving money on fuel with smart gating, and that obviously has an impact on sustainability. Are there any other initiatives that you're working on that are impacting sustainability or helping American deliver against its goals?
So as a technology function, we have a vision from an operational reliability and security standpoint that I talked about earlier. But everything else is predicated on the goals that our operations team members have, right? So smart gating is the example that we just talked about, which improves sustainability. But if there are any other initiatives that our operations teams have that could use a digital product to improve sustainability, we'd be working on it. And that's where we have built in a lot of agility in the way we bring products to the market, as well as what we can do through the year as well. So rather than just setting up plans in place that might span multiple years, we are now more agile to taking in inputs from customers as well as our team members outside of technology to build our digital products.
And that feels like it's part of your digital transformation journey in a lot of ways. I mean, for all of these executives in this room, what kinds of advice can you give in terms of making sure that you're on the right path in terms of digital transformation?
Look, for us, as a technology function, we don't exist to just celebrate AI or Gen AI just because it's a cool technology. We try and leverage these tools so that it drives business outcomes. So the first and foremost is the mindset that we have driven within our technology team to ensure that everything that we do is tightly coupled to a business outcome. We've really invested in modernizing our technology platforms. Like I just gave you the example of a legacy tool that was driving batch processing versus something that can be done more real time. So both of those go hand in hand, right? So you got to make sure that you're investing in tools along the way. And then the central premise is, if you really have to be connected at the hip to the business goals, then how you work has to change. So historically, if technology was thought of as being a cost center and a cost center alone, that could lead you down a certain path in terms of how you make decisions on what type of work needs to be done in-house versus what can be done through a third party.
And you're engineering a lot of this stuff in-house, right?
We are trying to strike a better balance in terms of what we can drive in-house, more than what we've done in the past.
Okay.
Recognizing that technology is at the core of driving customer excellence, operational excellence, or better customer experience and operational excellence, we are bringing in more of our differentiated products in-house. That doesn't mean that there's not a place for other suppliers in our ecosystem to support us, but we're going to be a lot more surgical in terms of how do we build that. And so I can tell you, certainly within American, we continued on this journey where we need to be efficient at what we do. Right? So it's not to say that we blow past our budget, there are no consequences to it. But more importantly, it is recognizing that technology could be a source of differentiation. And if that's the case, then how do you build agility in terms of how you bring technology to the market? How do you make sure that you work differently so that you're working on the right business priorities? And you have enough of the skills in-house, and we call this T-shaped developers, where you got enough of skills within the technology function where you can swap resources. We are very in the early stages of our journey to enable that. So as our business priorities change through the year, we should be able to flex our resources very dynamically.
Okay.
Okay. So those are some of the changes that we're trying to make to bring more value to what we do.
And are there any big challenges on the horizon? Is there anything that keeps you up at night these days, or what's the next big?
Well, cybersecurity is probably the biggest challenge. From an infrastructure, we are one of the core providers of, we're considered to be a key provider of infrastructure and services for the country at large. So I would, no surprise to probably anyone in this audience, that ensuring that you've got a much more resilient posture from a cybersecurity standpoint is really critical. And so as part of our we call this re-engineering the way we do IT within American. A big focus at our end is to ensure that we shift left, and it's a term that we use in technology quite a bit, which is how do you design products at the very beginning that is very resilient from a cyber standpoint. Very similar to what we do from an operational standpoint. Safety comes first, right? And that's we track that pretty religiously. We're starting to track cybersecurity a lot more with that same bent of mind, so that we drive the right behavior.
Has it become more challenging, cybersecurity, over the past few years?
Certainly it has, as whether it's hacktivists or nation-state actors are becoming, just like what you all heard at the election, right? It's no different for us within the airline. And so making sure that we try and stay one step ahead in terms of how do we design some of these products and solutions, how do we bring some of the best tools that we can invest in. That's an area that we've invested quite a bit on compared to the previous years, is both technology overall, but also cybersecurity in particular. And that's a combination of software, hardware, but also the skills that we're bringing to bear within the individual teams, so we can continually improve our posture.
And what's next? What's the next big sort of innovation on the horizon for you?
Well, generative AI is probably the biggest thing that we're all experimenting with. AI, we talked about a little bit in the past. Generative AI is an area that we've been spending quite a bit of time on, trying to figure out how much of this needs to be external facing, how much of that is internal. We've run a lot of proof of concepts, that's what we call, focused on internal efficiency improvements, just to make sure that we have these well integrated within our system first and foremost, that we can put some boundaries on governance and privacy, over and beyond security that we just talked about before. And that is what's going to likely come about in the future, which is how do we use generative AI appropriately in areas that drive higher levels of personalization in our interactions with our customers.
Yeah, I think we're going to hear a lot more about that a little later today. So
awesome.
Great. Thank you so much, Ganesh.
Thanks for having me.
Appreciate your time. Thanks. After you.
Yeah.
Thanks.